Does life ever just feel like one problem after another? For a time traveller, the hero of time can't seem to catch a break, spends his entire youth saving Hyrule, and then for the first time embarks on his own quest, only to get jumped by some bozo and end up having to save the world once again. It would have been way easier to sack this all off and go down to the pub, but a beer always tastes sweeter after a hard day or three's work. So let's save this world, because there's a plethora of fantastic places that we can drink this hard-earned beer. The land of Termina provides us with so many different areas and atmospheres, we just have to figure out which one's the greatest. Today we'll explore them all, but I'm not alone. The boys will pop in and out to share their invaluable insight.
That looks like me in the morning after 12 cans of Red Stripe and a very salty Chinese takeaway.
And with help from the good folk in the Discord, we're going to once again answer the age-old question. Where is the best spot for a beer in Majora's Mask? We begin with Termina Field, which I'm going to label as the sightseer's beer of choice. Look at these 4 different views you can get just with a short stroll of the city gates. Great to sit by the walls and escape the hustle of the town without being in any grave danger, because when you take a step too far outside, that's when problems arise. The beachfront is far too busy. You'll be hopped out by the local slugs relentlessly. Trying to relax here is like trying to find a spot in Skegness Beach in July. The peaceful grottos of Hyrule Field are gone. Instead here, we have the dens of big lizards, or a set of gossip stones, only serving to remind you of the impending Armageddon. Doesn't exactly entice me to crack open a bevy, but it does remind me that we don't have all day. Let's get a wiggle on and get into the woods. Now you may not expect a swamp to hold much of anything, but you'd be wrong. If you can navigate past the nasty plant, you'll come across the shooting gallery. In the UK lately, there seems to be a lot of axe-throwing establishments popping up, and the gallery is giving me that kind of vibe, especially because the bloke running the gaff is British. He just called me mate and misses out half the letters in most words. He's one of us, and because he's British, that obviously means he keeps a crate of John Smith's in stock. It would be a disservice to my country to not have a beer here. I'm not entirely convinced about mowing down the local wildlife, but hey, when in Rome. A bit further up the road, we've got the potion shop. Granted, I wouldn't enjoy climbing up these after 5 beers, but maybe if you can't manage the ladder, it's time to put the bottles away for the night anyway. Inside you'll find a lovely young lady selling only the finest. Now that's how you know it's a weird place. Beers aside though, what a wonderful place to have a business. Out in a little valley with a private waterfall. Splendid. We'll dodge the mysterious woods for now. If you've watched my Ocarina of Time video, my thoughts are the same as the Lost Woods. Give it a gander once you finish this video. Now here's where things get a bit more complicated. After disposing of the giant Octo, we've got the Palace. The rules of these videos dictates that the music can be heard, and therefore dictates scoring. The track playing makes me uneasy, like when you're on holiday and you've gone somewhere a bit outside of your comfort zone. You really start to feel like a tourist. I mean, not to mention the display of a monkey tied to a stick. The vibes are all sorts of off. You need to be sober, on red alert, and have your wits about you, especially if you're to navigate past the guards to reach the home of the bean salesman. Something tells me he's feeling green. Don't get me wrong, I think it's a chilled hidey hole, but it might be more of an STP. That leaves us with Woodfall. It would take an expert salesman to convince me that there's much to enjoy here pre-salvation. But once you've bested Odolawa, things start to change. Life is sprung back into the area. It was once a boggy marsh, but now it's more tropical paradise. I mean, obviously I'm British, so it had to rain. The best way to enjoy your hard work restoring the area is to go on a boat ride. We all know that a beer on a boat is top tier. I took a catamaran trip with my friends in Spain a few years ago. I can confirm that firsthand, this is good. Take me back. Let's continue in a clockwise manner. Great Bay has a lot going for it. Beer on the beach practically speaks for itself, but let me give you the nuance. You know those jarring slug fellas? It's like they know their place here. If you stand on a beach towel, they won't bother you. Kind of like an anti-sea bear circle. Question to the audience quickly. What's the best beer for the beach? I'm going with Corona. The most golden beer in the golden sun. A big contender for the worst place for a beer goes to the Spider Hut. Damp, dark cube of concrete is not the vibe. You might find a certain type of person with some special brews here. A spot for beer can be made or broken by the people that inhabit it. Thankfully, Great Bay is home to the Zoras, and in this game, they're proper sound. It's always nice to meet new types of people and end up getting on with them. I recently took a road trip to Germany. Sank some beers while speaking some broken English at the local bar with my new German friends. P.S. The Highlander is the best spot for a beer in my end. Perhaps the greatest location of this area is the Zora Hall, the main attraction being the live music, which personally I've always thought is a double-edged sword. It has to match the atmosphere, but thankfully, the music here is nothing too crazy. Just a couple of acoustics to make a nice subtle ambience. Maybe perch a seat up with your pals at the top, and pack with you maybe an Estrella. But don't go too crazy. This is a classy place. Let's treat it with some respect. Fun tidbit for you, Bossa Nova just means new wave. So the new wave Bossa Nova just means new wave, new wave. And if you're looking to get into Bossa Nova, start with the song The Girl from Ipanema. This is probably one of the most famous songs in the world. I'd somehow never heard of it until a few years back. Give it a listen. But let me tell you about my all-time favourite beer activity. Nothing comes close to playing cards. And we've got the perfect setup right here. Chairs, table, good lighting, all you need. Screaming at your mates over a game of Uno is unparalleled. The Zora Hall overall is pure quality. Not sure about the doorman though. If you're feeling brave enough to hookshot onto the turtle, you'll find yourself at the Great Bay Temple. There's a specific memory this reminds me of. I went to a rave in a warehouse on the docks of Liverpool. You see those droplets coming from the ceiling? The rave was so hot, the sweat from everyone evaporated and rained down on us. Not pleasant, but to be fair, might be better than an actual dungeon. I was swindled into taking a trip to the Pirates Cove. I was reassured by one of my Zora pals that there would be beautiful women here. But there's a strict no blokes policy, and to be honest, we're not missing out on a whole lot, unless you're interested in indoor explosives and getting chucked out of 2-story windows. That leaves us with 2 final locations for the area. Firstly, there's the Marine Research Facility. The big fish in the tank remind me of my old mate Billy the Fish, appropriately named Billy No Mates, because he would try and eat everyone in the same tank. But he was a good lad. If you sat at the kitchen table, he would stare ominously at you whilst you ate your dinner. Good fella. This isn't quite a boozer, but an interesting place. James, do you think that looks like Lorenzo's dad?
The Batman! It is me, Eduardo!
You know, Ed watched my videos the other day. He was impressed.
That's quite the badge of honour.
I've gone from being fat Harry Potter to saying that he likes my videos.
Fat Harry Potter.
He said that to my face. Kubagma, you look like a fat Harry Potter, mate. In other news, if you can navigate yourself up to this mountain passageway, you'll find yourself at the Beavers Rapids, which on paper sounds great. There's a really nice spot of water, but once you're at the bottom, there is naff all to do. Now the keen-eyed among you will notice that I drove past the Milk Road. There's no reason for that, I'm just a bellend and forgot where it was. So let's pull a Yui and get right back on track. Whilst recording this video, I've come to realise that a lot of the nice songs in Majora's Mask are all just songs from Ocarina of Time. Nostalgia feels comfy, doesn't it? When you're out in the cold sea, it's whiny and harsh. But when you see a familiar face, Romani Ranch stands out as a location that feels detached from the problems of the land. Well, post-Ghost at least. There's a lot of very specific spots here. You could opt for an evening beer by the fire. Plenty of nice glasses to choose from. Mama's even got some dinner on the go. Or perhaps you could have a chat about brews and roosters with the appropriately named grog. I love how this tiny little chicken coop just feels so excluded from the rest of the land. You ever been greyhound racing?
No, never.
Have you not? I got dragged there once. It's proper weird.
It's just full of old boys.
When you bought tickets today, you got a free voucher for pies and beans.
That sounds like my kind of place. I'm not gonna lie. What the f is that?
Well, that's the local viewer. Yeah, I went greyhound racing in Nottingham. Proper weird.
Well, that's your first problem.
I was in Shottingham.
You were in Nottingham. Only one good thing came out of Nottingham, and that's Warhammer.
Warhammer came from Nottingham?
Yeah.
You know, I hadn't planned to fill this video with personal anecdotes, but it is ironic I'm taking you back in time with me in a game all about going back to the past. But for my money, the #1 location has got to be on the roof. Around the back of the house there's a ladder that will let you up to spectate the whole ranch. Doesn't get much better than this, does it? It's a shame we can't just stay here. Kick back in the sun, Budweiser in hand. Sorry, I mean Chateau Romani in hand. But time waits for no man. The run up to 30 is proper weird. Feels like I just blinked and a decade rolled by. Was it too many nights out? Was it too many nights in? Was it too many games of League of Legends? Probably. But that leads us to the Gorman Track. Looks to me like they've already had a few. To be honest, there's not really a whole lot to write home about here, but we do have rotisserie mystery meat. Do you even care what's in your kebab when you're on the sesh? CBG interjection. Whilst recording this video, I finally located FS after 6 long months. I've been on a wild goose chase looking for this stuff. Spotted it in B&M whilst shopping for cheese. Who would have thought? Let's shoot north and get ourselves into Snowhead. Now in the UK, I'm always a fan of heading northbound. The buzz of the southern cities doesn't excite me anymore. I want to 1, be cold, 2, look at some hills, and 3, buy Guinness for £4.10. I'm going to take the ski holiday approach for this. Let's start at the peak and have a beer at each stop. Snowhead Temple, like most of the temples, isn't the most inspiring of places to be, but it does signify the start. So put your tinnies away and let's slide down to the Goron village. I don't want to freeze my bollocks off, so let's get inside the only establishment here. The town hall doesn't have too much going for it, except for a lovely chandelier. But what it lacks in content is made up for by the folk inside. Some genuine fellas here, and if you just so happen to be a famous hero, they'll sing your praises. I don't know. I could sip a crispy mountain beer while everyone tells me how great I am. Adjacent to the Goron village, we've got the real attraction, the racetrack. On last month's excursion to Germany, we went to the Nürburgring, which conveniently had a van selling Bitburgers. Pure German beer and a spot of racing was a class way to spend an afternoon. I see no reason why this wouldn't be great here. Plenty of good spots to spectate the action. Grab yourself a fishing chair and you're well away. Absolutely stellar location. At the base of the mountain, we find ourselves at the most picturesque gaff I've seen so far. I mean, come on. The clash of winter and spring. You can whack your Cronenbergs in the ice whilst you sit in the sun. It'd give you something to do whilst you wait for your fresh new sword to be sharpened. Admire the waterfall. What a lovely place. And if you're a crazy bastard that loves a spot of cliff diving, you are quids in, mate. Back-to-back bangers to round off the north. But before we continue, I just want to mention Red Stripe's home of Jamaica. They're having a bit of a tough time with the storm at the minute. If you're feeling generous, chuck a few quid their way if you can spare it. I've done it on the Red Cross. Cheers. We've got 3 major locations left before we can crown our champion. Ikana Canyon, Clock Town, and the big fella himself. The first of which is a bit tricky, because getting here is an absolute nightmare. Bomb rats, scary stone blokes, and a 40-foot cliff. Transport links were clearly not prioritised. It's nearly as bad as the M42. Our first spot is the graveyard. In the daytime, we can pour one out for all of our homies that didn't make it. But at night, the dead fellas are having a blast. If you're a cadaver, this might be your best bet. It is a bit of a rowdy park sesh though. Make sure you bring your JBL and White Lightning. But if you like getting Larry on the grass, this is for you. They might be undead, but fair play to the lads. They're having a grand old time, and they keep it going to the early hours. Maybe we'll come here for afters. Once you've made it to the canyon itself, we're actually met with a pleasant spot of water. Everyone knows where there's water, there's the possibility for a beer. But there's one problem. The local nitty dashing about really does ruin the vibe. If you can manage to scale the cliff, you'll be met with the Music Box House. And there, you'll meet one of the soundest blokes going. Happy to chew your ear off about the lore of the locals, and lay your eyes on those speakers. I'm a big audio snob. My dad always had massive stereos. I can completely understand the desire to have a ceiling height sound system. Now there's 2 types of people in this world. Those who will see the sunlight shining through the windows of Ikana Castle, and it will remind them of a warm summer morning, maybe with the birds chirping. And then there are those whose sight of the morning sun will remind them of the incredible hangover they're about to face. And on that theme, the Stone Tower Temple is just quintessential headache. You know when you've had one too many and the room starts spinning? Well, I can do one better. And it's a shame because the temple itself is actually quite atmospheric. You know, minus the 1,000-foot drop. But it does have a party piece though, and it's the boss room. This one's for the pondering Pilsner. No noise, no people, no problems. We love a bit of sand, and we love to get away from it all sometimes. I really wish I could go somewhere like this. Somewhere where no one else can truly go. Completely alone. Quick reminder to please subscribe if you like what you're seeing, and potentially join the Discord. Cheers. We finally made it back to Clocktown. It's a very bizarre place to be, and it changes over the course of the 3 days. Starting with the south, this is where the main carnival is held. If not for the impending doom, this might have been the top spot, but we've got to accept reality. There aren't any stalls, there's no burger van, and the performance have buggered off to safety. So it's just us, and a bit of scaffolding. That leaves us with the laundry pool as our main hope. Now there's two ways to look at it. In a perfect world, you could sit here and share a glass of wine with a mate. But in all reality, you'll probably look like a complete nitbag getting tipsy on a park bench. South Clocktown is naff. However, stepping east brings us to the entertainment district. I can't decide if it's a fun little area for activities, or if it's more like the Ayanapa Strip. Blow up the targets and get a free fishbowl cocktail for your mates. Regardless if you're on a stag do, or just milling about, there is a game for everyone. You could have a piss up and spend all day here. But okay, I hear you. It's finally time for the obvious choice. The latte bar is the no-brainer spot for a beer. But is it really? I'm not convinced it is. Seems a bit of a lonely place to be. Just look at the seating arrangement. Doesn't give me a social vibe. Sip your Romani and stare vacantly forwards. This is the place to drink your sorrows. Which granted, everyone needs a place to do that. The clientele isn't exactly the cheeriest bunch of folk. Bro needs to go to Milk Anonymous. But I do appreciate that the barman has the drinks on draft. This is a man who knows his trade. Nothing worse than when you go to a bar and they've got your favourite beer, but it's only in a bottle. Another docked point is that you even need a membership to get in here. Needing a subscription to the boozer is fundamentally wrong in my view. Perhaps a controversial stance, I'm giving the latte bar the thumbs down. Once you've finished there though, you can retire to the inn. City Centre Hotel next to the bar is a business masterstroke. Looks like we've got a bit of a dorm style room at the back going on for some hostel vibes. It's always been one of my biggest regrets that I never got to go backpacking in Europe. I always wanted to go interrailing through Sweden and the northern places. I bet some of you guys have some great travelling stories. Please lay them out in the comments. For the least in the east, the mayor's office is probably not our best bet considering what's going on in there. But his missus does have a comfy looking leather sofa. My granddad lived and died in his green leather lazy boy chair, sipping whiskey with a cigar on the go. What a bloke. North Clocktown is where the least is going on. You've got the slide, which could be fun. Me and the missus climbed a children's play area at night after a couple of wines before we went to see a movie. It was a very liberating experience. Moving on, we've got the Fairy Fountain, which given its city location really reminds me of a Thai massage parlour. You know those ones where it's got misted glass and you're fairly certain it's legit, but also slightly concerned that it's not so legit. And lastly, the Deku Scrub Assault course. Fairly useless to me, as I'm not currently a Deku Scrub. So it all comes down to West Clocktown, sort of the retail district. Beer and bank cards is a dangerous combo, especially considering the opening hours. The trading post is open around the clock. You could come out of the boozer and head straight in here and buy some absolute tat. I could end up in big trouble buying 9 Heroes shields after a few too many stripes. I will say that I do love a dance, and with no established club, looks like we're bussing it down with the Scarecrow till sunrise. I really do hope they have a sobriety rule in the bomb shop. And lastly, the Swordsman's Dojo is interesting. With the Japanese-inspired decor, you must have a few bottles of vintage sake hidden around. Or maybe some imported Asahi. It better not be UK brewed Asahi. That's like drinking a loaf of bread. Horrible stuff. Also, Avadeek's at that absolute unit of a sword. There's only one man that can hold that. So, we've got one location left. But to get the best look at it, we've got to venture to the Astral Observatory, which in its own right is a cracking spot. The music here is so serene. I'd happily lose a few hours over a glass of red and a bit of stargazing. One of the few truly calm locations in the game. Why he has a chicken in a cage, I don't know, but it will sneak into the cool tier right before the end. And speaking of the end, time stands still inside of the moon. The chirping birds, beaming sunshine, and rolling greens can last forever. It reminds me of all the great times I've had in summers past. Were they the best times of my life? Is there really any better moment than having my feet on the grass and a beer in my hands, spending time with my mates? I don't think so. To me, that's what it's all about. Doesn't matter where you come from or what you do. Sometimes the best things in life are as simple as sitting under a tree in the sun. And this is the best spot for a beer in Majora's Mask. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. Maybe if we hit 10k, I can get a beer sponsor. Thank you as always to my channel members that keep me going. Consnip, Aussie Will, Metal Pipe, Perseus, 8 Eat Null, Champs, Vanilla Gorilla, The Cougar Hunter, Evil Girl Lily, Erasal V4, Caffeine, Timster, Leonidas, Blue Jay, and Pasty, or Pasty. I love you all and I'll see you next time.